Welcome everybody. So this is my factoring review video. You have two types of factoring that we'll talk about. There's special cases, but for the most part just these two types of factoring. First one was greatest common factor. Second was the AC method. Some people call it splitting the middle term. Let me get a pen up here. I'll work in blue. So when you're looking for the greatest common factor, you're looking for factors that are in both terms at the same time. So what do both divide by? So the first thing I'm going to look for is a variable. I see an n in both terms. That's important. And I can't figure out how to erase. Okay, that's important. So an n can come out to the front of the term. The other thing that's in both is 6. They both divide by 6. So a 6 can also be written down here. I'm going to put parentheses to show what's left over after I divide those out. So I'm going to divide out 6 and n from both terms. So 6 divided by 6 is just 1, which I don't need to write. And squared divided by n is just n. Negative 54 divided by 6 is negative 9. And n divided by n is 1, so again that doesn't need to be shown. So this is one example of greatest common factor. You just look for something that's in all of the terms. So then we're going to look in the second one. So this actually is a combination of things. Greatest common factor is one of them. There is a common factor in all three, and that is 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that out first. So I'm going to write it as 3 out front, left with x squared minus, negative 9 divided by 3 is just 3. 30 divided by 3 is 10, so it'll be negative 10 there. And now we have common factor factored out. Problem is I'm not done. This can actually get factored further using what's called the AC method. I'm going to use a different color here. So the very first number, which is actually a 1 there, that's A. The second number, that's B. And then the third coefficient, by number I mean coefficient, let's get us a good purple here. The third coefficient, or the constant here, that's our C. So it's called the AC method because we take A times C, and that equals negative 10 here. We also look at B. B is negative 3. So I have to find two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to B. So I'm looking, I can make a list, find those two numbers, eventually you'll come up with negative 5, positive 2. Negative 5 and positive 2. That's not my answer, but it does help me factor this. So what I'm going to do, the 3's already dealt with for the time being. It's called splitting the middle term. Some people, because they actually split this middle term into those two numbers. I'm going to write it down. So we have x squared minus 5x plus 2x minus 10. Notice how it has to split to negative 3x, so they both need to have an x after them. Then we can find a common factor of both sides. This one, they both have an x in it. I'm going to do each step in a different color here. So x. So I took an x out of both of those because they had it in there. And in the second one, they both can divide by 2. And I'm almost done. This actually has a common factor as well, which most people won't see. The x minus 5 is in both terms. So you can actually factor the x minus 5 out to the front, and you end up with x minus 5 and x plus 2. So you've got factoring using the AC method, which is really cool. One other cool thing is some of you really sharp people might have noticed that the -5 and the 2 are the same numbers as I circled in red up here. They are, and that actually is true, but not for every case. That is true when a equals 1 though, so I call that the a equals 1 shortcut. I will use that term a lot. So the a equals 1 shortcut is a big deal. Alright, so that's video number 1. Appreciate you guys.